Well, welcome everybody. I realise it's pretty hot in here, and just on behalf of us as well, and me as a levy payer, everybody's looking a bit tired and a bit snoozy after lunch, to stand up. And I'd like to thank Laura for organising today, and also the AHDB for giving us the opportunity to have world-class speakers for our levy. So if you can just share it. Thank you. Hopefully everybody's awake now. Yeah. Not starting today. We've done it. So, but it's an underutilised resource. I believe that a lot of people don't appreciate. There's a lot of grumblings about levies going up, but I think they provide a huge service for us. Undervalued, probably under-resourced as well, but hopefully, we've all gained something from today from Joel, and you'll learn nothing from me. But okay. So.
Okay. So I'm part of a consortium, so it's not just Farm Carbon Toolkit. Alex, who's part of the Farm Net Zero project. So this is our consortium for the 5-year project, the Farm Net Zero. It's lottery funded, and it's a major project in Cornwall that's focused on community, and it's aimed at working with farmers and demonstrating how we can actually reduce emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, but also improve the resilience of the sort of farm business. So it integrates elements of soil, but also reducing potentially feed, fuel and fertiliser, and looking at the whole sort of farm business. So and Andrew is one of our 3 demonstration farms, and in addition we've got 40 monitor farms, some of you are here today, who are all focused on reducing emissions, but Andrew is one of those who's got a challenge to be net zero within 3 years time in effect.
Before you move on, there was a question about docks. I haven't cured it, okay?
Okay.
But I do use them as a really good indicator for our staff when we're grazing. We know that if we've got grass left in the field, if they've left the docks, okay? We know if we've grazed the cows tight enough, if they eat the docks. Nettles, we're grazing too tight, okay? So, but it's an easy indicator. Yeah.
So within the project, the work integrates soil sampling, it integrates a whole range of different events. Many of you have attended them. It can include silage, which was our last nutrient density of foods, hedgerows, grazing, cover cropping, and so the events are actually driven by the farmers, so they're free for you. If you want to join Farm Net Zero Network, we've got some flyers at the back, you're welcome to come and join us. It's evolving, but with the demonstration farms and select other farms, there are additional questions that come up, and for those we have a sort of resource where we can actually carry out certain trials to assess answer those particular questions. And Andrew's always got an awful lot of questions, so we're just going to cover some of those today with particular reference to what Joel has been talking about this morning, and this afternoon, which has been fantastic. Oh, I've got Mike talking there. Just a minute. Right. Okay. Yeah, I do a good job. So this is Andrew's sort of carbon footprint. So what we have, this is after. So overall emissions have dropped compared to first year to the 3rd year from the carbon footprint. But just to sort of focus on particular aspects here, so fat protein corrected milk is one of the key efficiency indicators for dairy, which many of you are very, very familiar with. And so already those emissions are very low. So the benchmark is 1.1 for the UK, and the grass-fed systems in Ireland are about 0.8 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. Yep. A particular area that we wanted to focus on today is in looking at, so we can't sample all the fields as part of this project, but an important element is to store carbon in 3 fields, which is a total of 19 hectares, and the carbon has gone up. And in taking those into account, the efficiency of milk production is almost doubled when we use the fat protein corrected milk as a sort of criteria.
And that is actually only about 5% of our area. So if we actually measured more, we probably are at net zero, or even probably carbon. but that's ongoing research.
And that's the relevance. I know Anthony's here from Terra Pharma, so there's a relevant of actually, ultimately, if there's capability to actually include assessing all the carbon, all the fields on your farm, if there's a capability, and doing it every 3 years or indeed every 5 years, which is what you've done already. Okay.
So I've been involved with Farm Carbon Toolkit for a long time now, with the previous Cornwall Agritech project, and now Farm Net Zero. So these are some of the results from some of the fields from both projects. So we did a trial between we wanted to see if we were building carbon across different scenarios. So we had a field of fodder beet which was freshly ploughed, obviously, and then 1 year after the next year after fodder beet, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then permanent pasture had never been ploughed, and probably it's now into its 3rd century of never been ploughed. So you can see there's quite a difference in some years, and I think this one particular field actually just lost, and sometimes, and I think there is variation in between years as well. So we are actually building carbon every year right through. These here, so we've been involved. We're sort of evolving and talking about feeding the world and the need for food and TB. We lost a lot of cows, so we actually started letting some land out for veg, either cabbage or potatoes. So these fields were all in cabbage that first year, and you can see some of the results there and how much we're actually and how quickly we're revolving. And we wanted to get a handle of actually, if we plough, you're always told it's really bad. But what we found is actually, if you plough once, it's fine, because we've actually moved the carbon from the grass stubble and the root system down, okay? And then we're rebuilding again into that top soil level of the new root structure of the next crop. I think, but where we found, if you plough a second time, you bring all that carbon that's the science term I don't know, but basically it started to rot and it's probably more available. Then you get a massive release if you plough that second time. Once, we've not really found any problem with once ploughing. And like some of the heavier soils that you've got probably benefit, especially if we've grazed them a bit hard, or it's been damp or maybe on silage or something else, so you can actually do it. So it's been a really interesting project, and you can see that we're quickly rebuilding and increasing carbons. So this was after the cabbage, and how quickly we were growing and maximising that. 12 tonnes of carbon per hectare, and that's neat carbon, isn't it? It's not CO2 equivalents. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. So if we convert that to tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent, just for these individual fields, this is what we're sequestering per annum. I think it's important to note that these temporary pastures, a lot of them are more complicated than just ryegrass and white clover, and you're using paddock graze systems as well. So across the project, we are noticing that management effect can actually cause an uplift of the soil carbon, because you are integrating, the plants are not spending a lot of time refoliating, they're not exhausting their root reserves, you're just defoliating once and then they can recover. So the management is fundamental in looking at this. And again, if you're adding diversity, I couldn't say it better than Joel earlier today, but if you've got deep rooting chicory or plantain, you are exploiting much deeper within the soil play, deeper roots, but also you've got much more diversity of canopy, which improves that sort of photosynthetic capacity of the canopy. So there are kind of additional layers when we actually start unpicking that, and we are able to do that as far as the project is concerned over many farms. So just looking at the carbon footprint, just the ones we do, that Alex and I are very much involved in from day to day, and many of you, important elements to look at. So this is Andrew's most recent one. What we've got is over 90% of livestock emissions are associated with livestock. So just eyeballing that, you're thinking, right, well, this is a pretty efficient farm with livestock, and the inputs are very, very low. So that's the starter. I haven't included soil within this, but these offsets, so we've got emissions and offsets, and these include the woodland, recycling, for example, energy, hedgerows, and sort of stewardship, which is maybe GS4 or equivalent. So this is the emissions, and these are the offsets, but this doesn't include soil. Okay,
so yeah, we've all been talked about nutrient efficiency, or nutrient use efficiency, and that we all want to be a sustainable future, and I very much strongly feel there's three legs to the stool of sustainability. There's the ecological side of it, there's also the economic side of it and the social side of it. So, you know, we mustn't forget that the economic and social side of it, you know, because it's very hard to be green if you're farming in the red. Okay, so we're farming in a system like paddock grazing. We milk 450 cows now, but we finish all our stock. TB ongoing issues and being with Ireland with their calf policies and stuff, so we actually finish all stock now, so it tries to take TB out of the issue. We just get very good at TB testing, but so it's almost, you know, so we're pretty much self-contained, other than some biogas digestate that we import onto the young stock land, but we're maximising all our slurries. Dirty water used to be the absolute bane of my life. I used to hate it, you know, just sprinklers and whatever, and it's blocked and it's a Sunday, and so we actually store most of that dirty water if we can, and utilise that in the summer when we seem to be getting these longer drier spells. And it's probably not the amount of nitrogen you put on. Okay, we used to use a lorry load of nitrogen a month, and now we've not bought any for 3 years, but it's the water is almost more important to us in the summer, with the small amount of nutrients within that to keep it available for the plants to keep it growing, and also healthier soils as well. And for grass and forage crop wise, we're using a lot of multi-species swards now, which gives us a lot more resilience into that drier spell with a deeper rooting. You know, a lot of people don't like cocksfoot. We've always incorporated a little bit of cocksfoot, timothies, festaloniums, different clovers, chicory, and plantain. Plantain particularly now. We've used chicory for nearly 20 years because we used to outwinter on fodder beet. Pretty tough on the soil, and I did enough of it 10 years ago and came back after learning from the arable boys that we were probably being too hard on the soil. Cows don't mind, they were quite happy outside, but it was the damage we were doing to the soil and was probably becoming a limiting factor to our business. So then by changing around, we put up some sheds, but we still on-off graze, and we still reckon to graze our dairy cows every day of the year. Okay, we utilise research from Ireland with on-off grazing. You know, they'll go out 3 hours a day. They've been still going out now, even all this wet weather, like 3 to 6 hours a day. Utilising grass, you know, we've got a huge potential in Cornwall with the high soil temperatures we can have through the winter. If you keep the plants and the soils active, they drain better. They also hold moisture in the soil, but actually, with good infrastructure, we can graze easily with very little damage. And you know, we'll just go on a very long, like roughly 5% of our grazing platform, and we'll graze that right through the winter, and then 1st of February, we just go back the same as we've done for 20 years, spring rotation planter, set the areas out, and it's really easy, and it just makes our life a little bit easier as well. It's less slurry, and if the soil temperatures are right, the plant will benefit from that. So we're hopefully reducing losses as well, and not having to spread as much slurry in big chunks. It's little and often. It just seems better for the plant and the soil.
And the carbon footprint.
Yeah.
I've got to say that.
Yeah.
Just coming back to those fields where the soil carbon was on the increase. So these went into the Savoy cabbage. So this is land that you contract out.
Yeah. So the cabbage, we've started letting out land for cabbage. And potatoes. Everybody likes chips. As you might know, we've diversified a bit into fish and chips as well. So I want to be plugging chips. So, but anyway, the cabbage trash normally would be just ploughed in under. Well, I'm like, well, actually, I can utilise that. Well, we can then put all our young stock onto waste cabbage early March, which is, as you all know down here, March can be quite a hungry month with cold wind and whatever else. Well, that gives us an ability then to maximise the area that we want to cut for first cut high quality silage for the milking cows for the next winter. you know, some crops, we've had 7.5 tons of dry matter off them, others maybe 3 if they've cut them really hard, but we've done trials in growth rates between grass and the cabbage, no different. Okay, we're doing 1 kilo a day. You know, it's through March and April, and they'll graze that down. I think there's another picture of.
Oh no,
Ooh.
I don't think so. No.
Ah, right. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So there's a graze picture. They'll graze that right into the ground that we can just direct drill straight into it. Okay, we might just, well, if there's any ruts from harvest, then we would just work them out. But literally, we just direct drill grass into that, or even barley undersown. And it gives us a break. It gives the grassland a chance to rest a little bit as well. So
one of the questions we quite often get is whether to plough or not, and it's an issue that I don't think we've bottomed out yet. So how can Andrew's soil increase in carbon with soil disturbance? So there's obviously the grass is being ploughed in before those cabbages. So if we just think about the soil carbon very crudely, we've got the labile, which is a very unstable carbon, which sort of is on the surface, which is releasing P's and K's and magnesium for your crop. Then you've got the mineral associated carbon, which is great, particularly in our Cornish clay soils, not so much in the sort of sandy soils. So in Andrew's soils, you've got a decent amount of clay. And then we've got sort of microbial carbon, the sort of necromass, the sort of bodies and living bodies of those sort of microbes. So at any Spartan, if you've got a grass of 5 years, are those top layers of clay saturated with carbon? So if you've got a lump of clay, it can only hold on to a certain amount of carbon. So actually, infrequent ploughing, does that mean those saturated top layers get buried and then you get unsaturated clay coming to the top? Is that actually what's happening? And in addition, is the labile carbon, sort of unstable carbon, like the grassy stalks or the grassy trash, not so much cabbage stalks, but are they storing carbon in that sort of mobile sort of cycling form? And does the crop material, so the addition of the brassica as opposed to the sort of grassland species, and the mark enhance the microbial community? So there's potentially 3, possibly more, but 3 sort of major processes going on there. And just coming back to the question about the sandy soil, where in sandy soils you are going to have very little of this mineral associated carbon. So under sandy situations, is it better not to plough at all? And actually, because you're dealing with the labile and potentially the microbial as well. So we get this, you mustn't plough, is perhaps the question. Let's look at your soil type. Let's look at the forms of carbon that are present, and then we can make a decision whether there are advantages or not. And again, as with all things, the answer depends on that individual farm case study. So I don't think we've bottomed out this question yet, but I think it's worth bearing in mind. So can we plough? If so, when and in what soil types? So we talked about the carbon. So it takes more time to restore soil structure. So what is the impact of reducing cultivation depth? What is the impact of time of year of cultivation? So we've got some trials sort of coming on, and with looking at those cabbage fields, it takes time to actually sort of recover soil structure. But this is a trial that's ongoing at the moment. So in discussions with, I don't know if you want to talk about it, you designed it.
Did we design it? Okay. Yeah, so basically in the cabbage, we're looking at, so can we stop runoff? So there, we haven't. Riviera, who we work with, they've inter-row drilled multi-species with the things over there. It's ongoing. So have we got any results yet? No, but by next spring, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then if we direct drill grass seed into them, we've already got some of the herbs that we want in there.
Yeah. So just sort of building on the questions that Joel raised this morning, we know that those cover crops must not compete with the cabbage. It can be oversown with grass and white clover. If you've got sort of residual cover crops sort of coming up and they haven't sort of died off, the species need to be suitable for recently disturbed soils, and there must be no brassicas because we don't want to bridge any diseases that are going on. So again, that's why this buckwheat, plantain, chicory and small leaf white clover were selected. In another situation, we'll take another handful. And again, we're trying to we've got sort of a range of different plant families going there, hopefully improving the sort of feeding of that microbial diversity below ground. So yeah, this is to address the challenge of soil issue and runoff. A trial that we did last year was on your potato fields.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, we did a trial, did different strips of multiple different mixtures of stubble turnip, rape, clovers, Westerwolds, mix of them all, straight Westerwolds, and then Hannah's done different tests and sort of slacking tests? Slaking tests, yeah. And she can probably tell you a little bit more than me about it.
Yeah. So again, it was using annuals for rapid soil recovery, because obviously annuals are really good at coping with bacterial dominated soils because they're the early ones in that succession of crops, and they sort of almost potentially create a better environment for your perennials, your grass species sort of coming forward. So just for Andrew is to recover those soils as quickly as possible. So what we have is very simple air dried sort of grab samples in the rooting zone of the individual crops. So I don't know if any of you have been involved in slaking tests. I love slaking tests, absolutely magic. So what you have is, this is exactly what Joel was saying, is like how clumpy, how sticky are those soils because of all that microbial diversity going on. So here we've got sticky soil, so you can see that these clumps are actually held together. So this is probably a better one. And what they're doing is they're just sitting there in the water. The microbial glue is holding them together. So if these soils had a direct hit from a raindrop, it would just stay exactly where it is. Whereas these soils, they've gone into water, go, and these are the soils that will run into road, which will run into water, the water courses, and cause all sorts of problems and lose the profitability. So this is where we want to go. And we look at aggregate stability, so this is the term that we use, and these are all the different cover crops that Andrew put in. So this is the mixture of everything: bursting clover and stubble turnip, forage rape, rye and vetch, Westerwolds and forage rape. So more soil stability, the lower you go, and you can see that Westerwolds is absolutely cracking in supporting the most stable soil. So this soil is brilliant after maize. I recommend Westerwolds a lot because it just holds that soil in place. However, for an individual farming system, when we go in May or June,
it's gone to seed.
Yeah.
So you lose a bit of digestibility for the above ground rather than subterranean livestock. So so basically it was all oversown a multi-species sward, and we've got to learn how to manage it, basically.
Yeah. So actually, these are not appropriate for the conditions, but rye and vetch and forage rape do a pretty good job and provide that grazing quality. So again, exactly as we heard earlier today, it's horses for courses, and the Westerwolds, has longer term effects on the forage quality and the profitability because the digestibility is going down, and this is not what you want.
So I'm also part of a grass check project right across the UK, where we're measuring growth rates and also fortnightly sampling to monitor qualities. It's been really useful, and what they're trying to develop is actually to have a tool that we've got a weather station as well, where it's working in conjunction with, to predict where growth rate will be. So then we'll be able to actually make decisions. Do we need to slow down? Do we need to speed up? And I almost get obsessed with a soil moisture deficit or maximisation or whatever it is at the moment. But so it's been part of a really interesting project, and that's all available online as well, really.
Yeah. And with efficiency, when you start following the whole system, it's knowing how much grass you're getting, and identifying fields that are underperforming. It can give you the first insight that the soils aren't quite right. You might have surface compaction, there might be micronutrient issues, you might need to address acidity. So it's like the final product is animal growth rates or grass growth rates, and what's happening in this biological black box, and then we start unpicking and assessing and looking at the soils and the nutrients and that sort of thing. So continual monitoring of growth rates, yield, productivity is central to sort of unpicking any potential problems. It makes a resilient sort of farming system.
Right, okay, so there's a multitude of things in this picture. So this was a small trial we did with a clover ryegrass reseed. I'm not saying the drill ran out, but when we put a strip in of multi-species, very, very much predominantly a lot of plantain and red clovers and other yarrows and such like. So 10-acre field, or it wasn't quite 10-acre field, but yeah, anyway. Where are the animals eating? They had free choice. All went in that herbs. Okay.
You put some more body down.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. Yeah. So, but anyway, so there's are we actually growing the things that the animals want? It's like but then, do we need sweets? If you had the choice, there's not a lot of jam and cream left, is there? So, it's a case of, is there preferential grazing? Potentially, yes, there is, but I think the mixed species sward is ongoing. In the background, the yellow strip was again the year before trials. That was that first year of trials, wasn't it? And then we tried different crops there, and we tried the black oats, exactly as you said, Joel. The black oats worked really well, fantastic soil stability, very quickly regained that soil structure back after potatoes. So our grandfathers probably weren't wrong in growing Black Supreme 30, 40 years ago. So, but yeah. So,
do you want me to do this one?
Yeah.
I'm just going to cover this one sort of quite quickly. I thought I'd just go with a bit of Joel's style with a bit of scientific stuff and then an explanation, because it's obviously a brilliant formula. Just speed over quickly, because obviously we're in the business of looking at sort of carbon footprints, and I think it's really important to state what we know and what we don't know. And when we're thinking about methane emissions, a major contribution to the UK methane digestive activities of livestock. Now, this particular paper, which Andrew forwarded to me, so the key element here is what we've got is that's milk solids, time of year, methane, time of year, and then methane per milk solids. And the different colours, so the green is the Jersey cross, the orange is the average dairy cow, and the green is the sort of elite line. And the important aspect here is that the Jersey produce less methane than the average Irish dairy cow, but breed did not influence methane per unit energy intake or methane per dry matter. But the key element here also is you can see methane production varies throughout the year, and it's affected by digestibility of the forage. And also, methane is affected by the tannin content of your forage. And we know that herbal lays have more tannin, as do the more diverse swards, but we are not accounting for that at the moment. And so all the time this area is sort of shifting, and where there's elements of improved resilience of your forage, so you're using much more grass per season as opposed to bought-in forage, you're saving money, you're saving carbon footprint, you're getting more muck directly onto the grass, which improves, you've got foliar uptake, which we know is a very good thing, but there's also a story with methane that needs unpicking. So, keep asking questions is one of the sort of fundamentals that, and when we think about Jersey crosses, you might think of, where you go for a high fat milk compared to an elite line, there's a lot within that system which we still need to be bottomed out. Okay.
So going forward, I'll just go back to that methane. So basically, enteric emissions make up a huge amount of a dairy cow's total emissions, but actually the Irish are actually going out and proving that in real life methane emissions from grazing cows are lower than the models predict. And I think that's a really important message to go forward to everybody, really. Anyway, so going to the future next year, we're hoping to be part of the Innovative Farmers trial, where we're going to be comparing mixed species swards and ryegrass swards for milk yield and constituents. I know we're up against time, but we're also going to, these other KPIs are going to be involved as well. Yeah. So it's going to be us having two groups of cows for a bit, but I think it'll be a worthwhile thing.
Yeah. And just sort of, we can look at individual years or we can look over multiple years, and it's that legacy effect of cover crops, for example, on fertiliser use. It's a legacy effect on longevity of the cows. It's a legacy effect of fertility. So it's actually looking at your farm system over multiple years, which will ultimately potentially improve the sort of economic resilience and also sort of reduce your sort of carbon footprint as well. So there's, you know, there's a long game in this. So summary, last one.
Summary. So yeah, I like trying things. I always say there's always a better way. Okay, do we get everything right? No. Do we get some things wrong? Yes, we do. But if we can improve our soil, you know, I'm the third generation at home, and hopefully I'll leave the soil and the farm in a better place for the next and future generations. And I think that's part of my job as well, to make that sustainability going forward. And I think the whole regen project, every farm's different, every soil's different, and I think it's going to be a different, there's going to be different things that every farmer needs to do, and that's the difficulty of regen farming. You know, it's not like going back to Pfizer's, put on 2 units a day, boys, you'll be all right. It's going to be different for all, and I think that's a really key thing that we've got to remember. And yeah, give it a go, just try something.
Yeah. And that might mean just doing half a field with, half a field without, or just leaving one pass, you know, and keep experimenting. And, you know, just as far as the Farm Net Zero project, what's great is there's a group of over 40 farmers who are asking questions, who are watching each other, who are trialling and assessing, and that's part of this sort of value of the community network. So yeah, always ask the questions, even if we don't have the answers yet.
Okay.
All right, we're done.
Thank you very much.